The Minnesota Vikings dominated the Atlanta Falcons, and Kirk Cousins returned to the Twin Cities with the best wide receiver duo in the league absolutely balling out as they cruise to 11-2. And Sam Darnold is him with another stellar outing as the Vikings are rolling on to 11-2 and heading into the next week. We're going to be breaking down all of that in this episode of Vikings Digest, but first make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you don't miss annual updates surrounding the Vikings as we head through the rest of this season. With that, let's hop into the first topic of the day, which is Viking dominate Cousins homecoming. So we see here in the final score that the Vikings just absolutely blew the doors off of the Atlanta Falcons after what was initially a very, I'm not going to say stressful, but it was a very worrisome first half where the Vikings were getting some things going, but it wasn't at the level that we are used to seeing them until the fourth quarter happened when they absolutely just ran with the game, blew the game wide open. And there was a lot of things to do with that, particularly two players that we're going to touch on in a second. But just overall, the Vikings going to 11-2, 6-1 record at home, staying almost perfect at home, protecting their home turf. Looking at the game stats too, they did dominate on a lot of different areas. If you want to pause it, you can take a look, see exactly where Minnesota faltered and where they were really excelling. The rushing was something that Minnesota got going, but they also could not stop very efficiently. Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier both had really solid days and scoring opportunities, but they really shut the Falcons down in the passing area, getting 2 interceptions and getting the fumble recovery on special teams on that kick return. So the Minnesota Vikings were able to create turnovers, create things that were made a lot of noise for the Falcons. And speaking of noise, the Minnesota Vikings home crowd, they brought the noise. Attendance for the game was announced at 67,008, which is the second largest for a Vikings game at the venue that opened in 2016. The only game with more in attendance was the 2019 border battle. So intrigue was high with the matchup, as it was Kirk Cousins returning to Minnesota, back to the team that he just left, and he spent a lot of years here, just under a decade, just over half a decade, where we didn't get a lot of crazy successful wins, but he did have a lot of good numbers. He was on pace for a really good season before he tore his Achilles last season, and now he went over to Atlanta. He wanted more of a long-term deal than a short-term deal, but still wanted his money. He went and got that in Atlanta. They started out hot, and now we've seen where that's gotten them, and they are getting the full Kirk Cousins experience that Minnesota has been so used to for the past few seasons, and Sam Darnold has been the absolute opposite. We're going to touch on him in a second, but before we get to him, we got to look at this receiving core, what Minnesota was able to do with receiving, particularly with, as Justin Jefferson said, the best wide receiver duo in the NFL, and they went out and they showed that today with Jordan Addison logging 8 catches for 133 yards and 3 touchdowns, the longest of which coming on a 49-yard score as well on 12 targets. If you didn't have him on your fantasy bench, I really feel sorry for you. I had a really bad fantasy day myself, so it is one of those things you have to recover from. But if you did start him, you were having a great Sunday like the Minnesota Vikings were. And then Justin Jefferson, of course, getting 7 catches for 132 yards, 2 touchdowns, the longest of which being that 52-yard score where he was just wide open right in front of the end zone with the blown coverage and brought this game. Really, that was the turning point of this game where Minnesota hadn't gotten too much going up until that point. And then when that Jefferson touchdown happened, you really felt the momentum and the energy in the game really shift. If you were in that building, it was probably so rowdy that you could just feel the roof blowing off. And that's what Minnesota proceeded to do. And looking at Jefferson, he is the youngest receiver ever to hit 7,000 career receiving yards. He did that in spectacular fashion today, scoring 2 touchdowns, his first touchdown in over 2 months. And he was able to do it on a great game at home. He was doing the gritty in the end zone. He was very happy to be doing it. So he had a fantastic game. That's nothing new for us. We've seen Jefferson just go out, have great games, as like 100 yards was almost the standard for a lot of games in this season and just his entire career. And almost after every single one of those games, we see one of these records come out where he is just shattering records, defying expectations, and forging his own path as one of a kind in his own right as a receiver where no one can even match him. Definitely the best wide receiver in the league and part of the best wide receiver duo. We're seeing Jordan Addison where Jefferson's been getting a lot of looks and a lot of heavy coverage. That's why we haven't seen him score as much lately. But Jordan Addison has been the target a lot of those times when Jefferson's locked down, because it's just opened up for him, and he's had these massive chunk play touchdowns, very efficient games, and he is finally back in the scoring ranks, and he's just scoring a lot these past few weeks. He has just been outstanding, and it definitely has solidified them as what I would probably believe as the best wide receiver duo in the league. Let us know what you guys think down in the comments below. That's going to bring us into our second topic of the day, which is Sam Darnold is him. Once again, Sam Darnold coming out with a fantastic game, posting a passer rating of 157.9, going 22 for 28, 347 yards, averaging 12.4 yards per pass, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and only 4 sacks. Yes, 4 sacks is a decent amount. That Falcons front 7 is nothing to scoff at. So they were really efficient there getting to him. But Darnold, no interceptions. That was fantastic. He's been almost perfect in that regard over these past few games. He has just been lights out and really just proving not only doubters of him wrong, but doubters of the Minnesota Vikings wrong, where he is continuously putting out these performances of perfect passer rating, multiple touchdowns, 300 yards, 200 yards, barely any incompletions. He has just been getting so much just praise by a lot of his teammates and his coaches, and you feel the confidence in them. But then you see around the league, people aren't taking the Vikings seriously. You look at Sam Darnold, his whole career, people have kind of counted him out, kind of just been writing him off. And now he's coming into this season where if it wasn't for Jared Goff or some of these other quarterbacks, we would be talking about Sam Darnold so much more and almost in the same conversation as the MVP race with Josh Allen, with Lamar Jackson, and maybe even Jared Goff if he's in that conversation. But there's so many things happening with Minnesota where they have to now talk a long-term deal with Sam Darnold if this season goes the way they want it to go. I know they're more focusing on the season at hand more than they are in the offseason. That's more things to worry about come February or March. And Minnesota is just focusing on winning as many games as they can so that Week 18 can be for all the marbles for the division against the Detroit Lions. But Sam Darnold did not stop there. Posting a career-high 5 touchdowns, he also set new career highs in passing yards with 347, passer rating, and all those in a game, although an NFL max pass rating is 158.3. It's hard to imagine playing anyone better than Darnold did. We're seeing Josh Allen. He has been having a great game against the Los Angeles Rams, but Sam Darnold has just been lights out as a passer. He's been exactly what you want him to be. He completed 22 of 28 passes and withstood 7 hits, 4 sacks, multiple other pressures caused by the 6 and 7 Falcons. They dropped down lower in the playoff hunt now with Tampa Bay just excelling right now. So Falcons seem like they're on their way out of the playoff picture. Minnesota is climbing back up. But again, it didn't stop there for Sam Darnold. He is the most games with 100+ pass rating in Minnesota Vikings history, and he has already gone 11 games of 100+ pass rating out of the 13 games he's played this season. Sam Darnold is making history. What we are seeing right now is a brand new Sam Darnold. This is a Sam Darnold that wasn't in the New York Jets, wasn't in the Carolina Panthers, maybe saw a flash or two in San Francisco in the limited times he got. Now we are seeing what Sam Darnold's full potential was. Maybe there is definitely a lot of growing pains he had along the way where his game has just gotten better with age, maturity, learning the game, learning the business of the football game as well. So he has just gotten to a point where this is where Sam Darnold was supposed to be at in his career. If the Jets had done everything right, maybe this is where he was supposed to be at a lot earlier. But now we are reaching the peak of Sam Darnold, and the Minnesota Vikings are there to reap the riches of that as they cruise to 11-2. Heading into next week, it's going to be a great game. Hopefully we can just come out with another W, and then hopefully Buffalo can take care of the Detroit Lions next week so that it can set it up for all the marbles on the final week of the season for the division and for hopefully a first round bye if that is the case. Hopefully that is the case for Minnesota. Hopefully we just go into this season just rolling and we can finally bring home a Lombardi trophy to the Twin Cities. But let us know what you guys think down in the comments. What did you guys think about the Week 13 win against the Falcons? What do you guys think about Week 14 win against Falcons? Sorry. What do you think about Week 15 next week against the Bears? Love to hear what you guys have to say down in the comments. But that's going to do it for this episode of Vikings Digest. I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.